Our next panel covers perhaps one of the hottest topics in the Arab region right now, and developments that are predicted to change the Arab world in fundamental ways. AI, business, economics, and finance are rapidly advancing and will continue to accelerate the pace of change. To introduce our next panel, we have a highly accomplished scholar in his own right. Our moderator will be Dr. Robert Mogielnicki. I'm hoping I didn't do that too badly, sir. Resident scholar at the Arab Gulf States Institute. He's also an adjunct professor at Georgetown University and a term member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Robert, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I've heard worse renditions of my name, so it's pretty good. All right. Yeah, pardon me, we'll just get ready here. Okay. All right, good. Well, thank you so much to the council for putting this on. We are running a little bit behind, and we have a lot to talk about today. So I'll spare everyone in-depth bios for our really esteemed speakers up here. And maybe just kick things off by saying that the broad topic of our panel is sometimes known as the dismal science. But today's talk is going to be anything but dismal. Now, we've heard about the challenges in the Middle East region, and many of them we've talked about today over the course of this conversation. But it's also worth remembering that there are a lot of opportunities in the region, and especially when we bring the U.S. and Arab countries together, and specifically actors, whether they're government actors or business actors together, there are a lot of exciting things that can happen. So we've asked these speakers to talk about what gets them excited when they think about relations between the U.S. and Arab countries. As you can imagine, there's going to be some talk about AI. Tech gets a lot of us excited. But this panel also is broader in focus. So when we think about economic exchange between the U.S. and Arab countries, of course, trade, investment, finance, all of these economic linkages are going to come at us really hard and fast. So with that in mind, I'd like to kick it over to Vipin to kick things off. Give us a sense of what makes you most excited and why.
Great. So, thank you, first of all. 2 housekeeping items. I know it's kind of a siesta time, so perk up. 2, everything I say, I have no political affiliation. But I know we are in Washington, D.C., so politics will creep in and everybody will take that in some way politically, but I'll make my best to be as neutral as possible. What gets me excited? I live and work in capital markets. How many people here think capital markets are due for a crash? Everybody's talking about a crash. How many people think markets are due for a crash? You know, I'm sorry to disappoint you. To me, this is 1999 once again, but it's .com 2.0. This market should have been up 30, 35% for the year. It's only up 10, 11, 12%. And I'll tell you, it should have been up 30% because of President Trump's policies. It's only up 10, 12% because of President Trump's policies. When you look at, just reflect yourself, just close your eyes, think back, and take yourself back to last year. Now assume if someone told you then there'll be no EPA to stop energy companies from drilling, from oil exploration. There'll not be a Consumer Finance Protection Bureau to put leash on finance companies. The antitrust department will be uber friendly and will approve every merger, every acquisition, every IPO. And there'll be unprecedented AI spending, not in billions, but in trillions. Where do you think And how do you think the market would react? It would absolutely be going crazy. And rates should have been lower a long time ago. The only reason, and this is purely self-inflicted, where we stand today with capital markets and why they are so volatile is because of President Trump's policies regarding tariff. Not let anyone tell you that a foreigner is paying the tariff. If you look at the data, it's either a US company or the US consumer. It's absolutely a tax. And I'm going to show you in charts if we get a chance and if we get around that this is purely a tax and no foreign supplier is paying the tariff. There has been a decline in business activity. And that decline, by the way, is purely due to a tariff as well as availability and supply of labor. Talk about the immigration policies of the administration and the impact it's having in availability of labor. For the first time since 2020, since COVID, business activity is actually down. So to your question, what gets me going? It's purely being neutral, but yet looking at where the opportunities are in the marketplace.
Let me ask you, if you don't mind, too. I mean, you speak with a lot of Middle Eastern firms and investors. Where are they seeing some of the risks, but also opportunities here? I mean, you're laying out you're looking at the broad landscape. Of course, there are risks to navigate. Tariff, you mentioned tariff exposure is one of them. That's something that, Middle Eastern firms and companies in the Middle East, have had to think about. They've, I think, avoided the worst of the tariff exposure, but there is some exposure in certain industries and sectors. But what are you hearing from your contacts in the region?
Yeah, so one that I like, where the focus is, which I think is AI and data centers. I think it's going to be a long run. It may not be same economically speaking to run the data center what it takes today, but it's going to be a huge opportunity for a long time. Think of it as new real estate. One thing that I don't like where their focus is, crypto. And I think it's a money pit. We all talk about Bitcoin and Ethereum as if we know what they are and how they work, but we don't realize that 6,000 other digital currencies have closed their shop. So there are two big topics that I talk to them about, and I discourage them from one, I encourage the other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you so much for kicking it off. You're giving us a lot of food for thought. Ehab, you also work a lot in this U.S. Middle East corridor, speaking to investors, speaking to multinational firms, helping them make sense of these landscapes, navigate commercial landscapes, find opportunities where they may arise. What gets you excited, and what are you hearing from your colleagues and contacts in the region?
Thank you very much, Rob, and thank you very much for the council for inviting me. To be honest, what makes me very excited now is asking for one of the gavels like that were given to His Excellency Mr. Abu Al-Anin. I'm excited to have one of these. I think we need one of them as we go in our life, and we find the right spot to use them. I'm more into a transactional perspective, but let me first divide, and this is a kind of a sophisticated group that we are talking to. We have to be a little bit more focused in using the terms when we speak about Middle East, because I don't think it is fair to categorize all the countries and markets and jurisdictions in the Middle East in the same way. Obviously, and like the city now is like full of activities, as you know, because of the GCC fantastic vibes with US. And this is a category that we can talk about. And of course, I'm very excited about it. I worked a lot there. And like now we are in always connection and servicing that important part of the Middle East. And then the second category of the Middle East is maybe we can call it the old school Middle East, with fantastic markets, amazing capabilities, great history like Turkey, Iraq, Egypt, Morocco is not an exception, where we can see also a lot of developments and moving forward at least. And there is another layer that unfortunately may be covered by the words of His Royal Highness and His Excellency in their keynote speeches when they were discussing all the geopolitical risks in the rest of the Middle East. So let's start with, at least for this round of the discussions, with the GCC. What we are seeing between the GCC and the US is massive and very significant. GCC countries are more and more becoming sophisticated, focused on understanding what they want, and they know what they want, and they are able to achieve it. And they are deploying their capital in a very significant manner. And we need to understand the importance of this capital because, as maybe you have seen the numbers, the GCC Sovereign Wealth Fund deployed almost half of the capital that was deployed last year across the globe. So imagine what can this capital do in terms of transformation of norms, ecosystems, driving national and local and regional and international champions. In the same time, the US is very much interested in the region. The president has given one of his first visits to the GCC, committed to the relationship. I think now His Royal Highness was talking in his keynote speech about the welcome, the extraordinary welcome to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. The President issued the first US investment policy memorandum with a great underlining of the importance of investments from sovereign wealth funds from friendly countries, and his administration is committed to establish a fast track for the investments coming from the GCC. So both ways we see amazing attention. And as I told you, because the GCC countries are more sophisticated, more aware of what they know now and what they need, the volume and the movement from the US there is not only now about fundraising and returning back. There is a nice volume of our clients and friends who are going to the Gulf to remain, to establish their fintech entities, so have their institutional investment platform. And we have seen all the news about the large asset management entities that are committed to establish their offices, develop talents, and create an amazing ecosystem. And just before I finish here, I would like to underline the importance of the existence of talents in the Gulf. In the old days, maybe when I moved first to the Gulf out of my home country, they used to give us incentives. Come, just have a look. There is this place, there is this mall, there is this attraction, and it was not an easy thing. Now talents are applying in thousands to go there, and this tells you that there is a right approach and right strategy being applied there, because capital always look for the talents and talents always look for the capital. So I'll leave you at this point and very happy to comment further as we go.
We're going to bring you in further in just a minute. Over to Rick to wrap up at least the initial remarks here. I'll give you the same opportunity as the Vipin and Ehab to tell us what you're following, what you're excited about, especially when you think about U.S. and the Arab world, relations between the countries of the Arab world and the U.S. And I'll take Ehab's point, which is a fair one. Of course, there are different parts of the region that we can differentiate. And if you want to work in the new school of the GCC or the old school of Turkey and Egypt, we'll welcome that. So over to you, Rick.
Thanks. I'm not going to add a lot. I think of perspectives on the Middle East, other than how AI pertains. I was a software industry analyst at Goldman Sachs for 24 years, so I tend to be long-winded and try to over-explain everything. So Robert's got me on a short leash. You said 5 to 7 minutes. I'm like, wow, I can't even say hello in that amount of time. But AI is something that's controversial in the stock market right now. NVIDIA reports tomorrow. How they do will determine how these stocks do. So these are short-term issues. It's one of valuation and how fast are things growing. Are they growing really fast or maybe not as fast? It doesn't really matter, for the longer term. The key is, people say, well, we're in a bubble. Well, valuations kind of correct over time, and they get high, they get low sometimes, but demand is not in a bubble. Demand is incredibly strong, and we can talk more about where AI takes the world and the role of the Middle East when it comes to enabling this next generation, because it is a whole platform shift. A lot of concern about capital spending. Commitments are being made for $2.9 trillion between 2025 and 2028 to build data centers. So people are worried that, wow, that's a lot of money, and can these companies really fulfill their obligation to meet the payments to service the debt and all the investment that's going into chips and data centers? So there's a lot of controversy in the market right now, but if we take a little longer term view at what's happening around AI, I think it's going to change the world. It really is. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not a bubble. The internet was, people say, well, it was a bubble. It's like, yeah, but it was just getting started. Look at where it is today. Who could survive without the internet today? AI is kind of the same thing. You could see, well, there are 10,000 VC-funded AI companies out there. And, clearly there's a bubble in that market. Those companies aren't going to be around for a long time. They'll burn up their capital, and there'll be acqui-hires, and some will make it public. A lot will be acquired probably. But the view that I would share with you is we're on the right road now to a very exciting path for humanity. It's Gen AI is kind of the next step, where computers can be almost indistinguishable from human knowledge. And then we go on from there to superintelligence, which is a little more frightening, where we're not real sure just what the computer's coming up with, but it looks really smart. This famous Go a game, Move 37, where the computer came up with this totally bizarre move, and everyone thought, well, what is that? And then they looked at it and thought, oh my God, it's brilliant. No one ever thought of that before. So I think we're in for some very exciting times. What we need, the Middle East has, we need more data centers. And for data centers, you need chips. So the Middle East needs NVIDIA chips. So there's a policy issue there, and I think that issue's been largely addressed. The whole world is short of chips right now. That's the big constraint. But power is the next big issue. And Middle East has tremendous amount of energy and power, and you need capital to finance. And I think the capital markets are extremely deep. I think we'll come up with the capital. The power is probably more of a concern to me. But I think this is, it's a very exciting area. We haven't even seen the enterprise market begin to adopt AI yet. It's been mostly building models, large language models, and enterprises are just starting to deploy agents now that can automate a whole range of processes, and ultimately companies become more autonomous, and a lot fewer people, and a lot of these processes will be re-engineered around agents, and one agent will talk to another agent, and humans won't be as involved in a lot of the automation. So I'll try to be brief and leave it at that with a teaser, and I'm happy to come back and spend as much time as we'd like on the AI side of this story.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I mean, there was a lot of overlaps with what Vipin said. When you mentioned, in terms of data centers, the three big enablers there would be need chips, which we know is, I think, a big part of the conversations going on in the White House today. Some of you who are more plugged into social media maybe have some of the announcements that are expected to come out or have come out over the past couple of hours here. Power and also capital. And this is precisely what we see countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. This is the pitch that they're making when their officials and representatives travel around the world and talk about the way in which they're positioning their countries as global hubs for technology and specifically AI. So I guess that's a good segue back to Vipin. I mean, are you optimistic about these bets, these big investments that are being led primarily by the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and to some extent other Gulf countries? We see Qatar being a big player in an investment. So we can talk about, AI investments, material being, emerging in the region, but also big investors from the Gulf playing a global role. How optimistic are you?
Absolutely optimistic. I think, look, in any new investments field, there'll be winners and losers. Where you bet on, how you bet on is the most critical part. At this stage, everybody is working on large language models. And I'm not an AI expert, but they all are looking very similar when you compare them. Cost will be the key driver. Another driver would be, yes, these are large language models, but to emulate a human behavior, you have to observe like a human, not like an AI. And that large observation model that people are now working on, I think would be the norm. I think I was talking to the CTO of NVIDIA, who retired last year, a couple of years ago, Manuvir Das, and we were sitting in a setting. One of the questions someone asked him, and this is America, so every question is about the baseball. So which innings of AI are we in? Was the question. And I thought he would say probably second inning, third inning, fourth inning, first inning. He said, the game hasn't even started yet. We are in batting practice. The game will start, but it hasn't started yet. And to me, what we are seeing in terms of these large language models, probably none will exist in 5 years. What you will have will be very different than what we have today.
It's better than the seventh inning stretch.
Exactly.
So, all right, good. Look, let's maybe keep on the AI train for just a minute. And Ehab, I said we were going to broaden this conversation out, not just talk about tech, but also talk about some of the linkages between tech, finance, investment, and the crossover to the sovereign wealth fund portfolio is very clear here, especially when you look at the GCC. There are a number of sovereigns who are playing a critical role setting up AI companies, backing these companies, creating new funds. What do you make of this, I would call it a new and emerging role of sovereign wealth funds in this space? Sure, they've been passive investors for quite some time, but active players, I think, is an identity, is a role that they've adopted relatively more recently. So just curious to get your thoughts on that and where you see those trends headed.
Thank you very much, Rob. And I became addicted to your moderation of sessions. Yeah, and now we have to have a session every month to be moderated by you. Yeah. So great to be again discussing these important points. Well, starting with the fact that sovereign wealth funds have really changed. I worked as in-house for one of the significant ones of them, and I remember at these days, like 19 years ago, we were knocking doors, introducing ourselves, and the regulatory authorities will be asking, how are you formed? What is your constitution? How you are managed? How are you funded? How can you pay back to the sovereigns and so on? And now these regulatory authorities are rolling the red carpet to these organizations, giving them the fast track pass and so on. That is a very significant change in the enabling system and the operating ecosystem of the sovereign wealth funds. Add to that the amount of wealth and capital that has been accumulated. As we have said, we were talking about some billions, now they are trillions, and these trillions are driving the market. If they focus on a specific sector to invest in a very aligned approach, they can flip everything around in terms of the leading sectors, in terms of the capital market, and so on and so forth. So they are real players, and they can really make a change. And in the world of sovereign wealth fund, they gathered during the COP25 and they issued some principles called One Planet Framework for Sovereign Wealth Funds, where they included the ESG standards in their life cycle of the investments. But the message is, if you want to lead the industries, the market, to do something, the easiest way, and this is what President Macron realized when he pushed this to happen during the COP25 in Paris, let the majority of the capital agree on the principles, lead the market, and then reflect on the rest and influence the rest of the market. If we focus on the AI matters, like I think it is a golden time for the GCC countries because of the existence of their very active, sophisticated sovereign wealth funds, the alignment between the strategies and the investment philosophy of these sovereign wealth funds and the national vision of every of this country, of these countries, like the Oman visions, the Bahrain visions, the Kuwaiti visions, the Saudi, the Qatari ones, all of them has embedded an important fundamental principle of their vision being 2030, being 2035 or further, on the knowledge and digital-based economy. And therefore, AI is fundamental in their strategies. So alignment between the visions and the commitment and the investment of the sovereign wealth funds, large commitments has been already declared and they are deployed. One of the amazing things about the advantages of the GCC countries is that they are starting from like the ground, because they are not yet constrained with all the technology. They are not constrained with all the data centers that are working with less compliance than the ESG. They are starting from a place where they are building the most sophisticated data centers in the world. And as you correctly mentioned, they have unlimited source of power, which is the real challenge. Everyone can talk about AI and data centers, but if you don't have enough power to have them working, this will be a big challenge. Their legal and regulatory system is up to date. They are following the international standards. They are committed to the international conventions. So very enabling environment. We just spoke about the talents. Everyone now, like in our office in New York, every associate wants to go to work in Dubai or in Riyadh or in Doha. I remember really the old days when we used to try to attract people and to convince them and to bring their wives to see that we have, for instance, a good restaurant here or one bar there and so on. The most maybe significant things to finish this with is the ability to scale in every possible way and form. Because of all what we have mentioned and because of the R&D, all of these countries are amazingly investing in their young people. All of them have graduated from fantastic schools in Europe and in the US. And all of these countries now have offshoots and branches of very significant universities, and they are investing a lot in the R&D. So I think combined all of these in one perspective, in one approach, we can say that the AI future in the GCC will be very promising, and the governments and the sovereigns are playing significant role in achieving this.
Oh, that's right. And before I get over to Rick with a question about AI talent specifically, because I think he'll be very well suited to answer that, I do want to do one quick follow-on with you, Ehab. I mean, the other issue that you alluded to with sovereign wealth fund investments has to do with different objectives between different investors who want to work with sovereign wealth funds. We know that a lot of U.S. firms look toward sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East region, and specifically in Gulf countries, as a source of fundraising for co-investments. But we know on the other end of that spectrum, Gulf sovereign wealth fund officials, I mean, they're not just looking to be a piggy bank. They're really looking to attract firms. They want to see companies set up on-the-ground presence, headquarters, senior talent, like you mentioned. What industries are you seeing there being a lot of uptick for? Because obviously I think it's easier to make a pitch for certain industries than others. And we know that the region is looking to diversify their economies. There's an increasing urgency around the need for economic diversification across a range of sectors. But investors, are not necessarily equally interested in every sector. So where are the gaps there? I mean, where do you see investors being really interested in working with, especially with sovereign wealth funds or just broadly in different parts of the region, versus where regional governments really need to attract investments? I'm curious about trying to identify that gap, and maybe it can spawn some conversations about here or later about how we can bridge that gap.
Thank you, Rob. I don't want to manipulate all the time, but look, first of all, there is no one size fits all in the GCC, because one significant thing for the smaller countries in the GCC, and there's nothing wrong about that, but it is a matter of like reality of the population and the market and so on, is the scaling. So I think the future for larger GCC countries is into fintech, AI, technology, because this is where you can scale easily in different markets and achieve the scalability that will allow you to have economical and financial returns. And it doesn't need a lot of labors, which is not existing in these markets. While there are other larger GCC countries where there is a scale opportunity, there is opportunity to have industrial activities, there is opportunities to have massive developments of real estate and so on. And here we add also the real estate and the infrastructure to the number of airports. Like I think the kingdom, and I hope one of our Saudi friends will correct me, I think they have around 20 airports. Of course, like this number of airports will not need to be existent in Qatar or Bahrain or Kuwait or the like. So that is another sector that can be expanding a lot. A very interesting sector, I think, is really required according to the national strategies of all of these countries, because of all the historical and family reasons and so on and so forth, is the biotech and healthcare. They have invested a lot, and they have put it as a priority in all their national visions to improve the healthcare and tackle all the chronic diseases and improve the strength of the DNA of their nationals and citizens and so on and so forth. So I think all investments in biotech and healthcare will have a great opportunity because it is addressing that and because it is within the national vision's perspective, in addition to the opportunity to scale and to grow outside such small markets from population and size point of view.
Okay, great. Rick, thanks for being patient here. I'm going to go over to you to talk a little bit more about talent, and specifically in the tech sector. The desire in the Middle East to create tech hubs or to encourage entrepreneurs who are working in tech startups goes beyond just the GCC. It's a big story in the GCC, but it's also an important part of development trajectories and economic planning in a number of different countries across the Middle East, Arab world. What do policymakers need to think about in terms of the skills that they need to really to work on and to generate over the coming years to be competitive in this space?
Yeah, so from a broader perspective, and I thought your comments were terrific. I agree with your observations. Just to back up a moment, you need power, but Texas has a lot of power too. But you can't get gas turbines anymore. They're booked up. So it's just not power. You need the equipment to generate power. You've got small nuclear, that a nuclear plant produces a gigawatt, right? Well, we're building, 2 gigawatt data centers, and they're talking about a 10 gigawatt data center. Well, we're going to build 10 nuclear plants around this thing to fuel it? I mean, the fuel consumption, the energy consumption is enormous. So, yeah, it's more complicated than just the energy raw material. It's the equipment. And then, of course, you've got to distribute the power So it becomes a kind of complicated issue. But the bigger concern I would have is the culture of innovation in the universities and the research. Your point was, I think, well taken. What we have, and I was involved in Microsoft's IPO a long time ago. I still have my hair, so I'm maybe look younger than I really am. But that was an exciting time, and they owned the operating system, and so they moved up the tech stack from the operating system platform up into the applications layer, and then we got Office, and then that's data center. Oracle, at the same time, they went public within a month of each other, owned the database, which it sat on top of an operating system, but they built on top of the database application development tools, these programmatic interfaces, and then they moved up through acquisition into the application space. So they owned their whole stack. Today, there's a new stack coming. The new platform is your LLM. So if you're OpenAI or you're Google, you say, well, we own this platform for AI. It's a large language model. Let's do an API on top of that, and let's do a software development kit and let people build their new generation of applications on top of our platform. So that's kind of happening under the covers of what we're watching right now. And this is an excellent opportunity to do acquisitions. The current administration is favorable, so there are windows open for M&A right now, for big M&A. And you better take advantage of it, because I don't know how much longer it's going to be there. But this is the time to try to get big fast, and the stakes are really high to be a player now. You know, you're investing hundreds of billions of dollars into data center and developing these models, and then it's, you know, the next thing is the whole platform around your model. So universities are critical because they have entrepreneurial, bright young people that can start writing the next generation of applications on top of these new platforms. And with vibe coding, programming is much easier now. Now you can get 90% of the code written pretty fast, but it's that last 10% that takes a long time. But if with a rich set of tools from these developers, companies, that's possible. So existing software companies are worried. This is another platform shift, and it's could be very disruptive to their business. So I think this is an opportunity for a new region to come along and say, we're going to invest in biotech around not large language models, but large math models. This next generation, there's a company, Sandbox AQ, that does this. You can invent a new molecule for a new drug in about a month. It could take a year otherwise for a PhD student to do something like that. So the opportunity to radically disrupt some of these healthcare biotech markets is just a wide open opportunity. So I would like to see in the Middle East not just a focus on data centers, that's the raw plumbing that's needed. Invest in the IP that sits on top, the innovation, the people, the university level to turn out people that can take advantage of this new platform for real innovation. There's an incredible race between the US and China right now on who can develop their AI platform fast enough, and you know, maybe within 6 months of each other. And so the stakes are really high because each country wants to be the ecosystem that creates the richest platforms for innovation and creates these next big things. So I think it's incumbent on other regions to say, well, we need to be in that battle. We need to innovate. We need to start creating creative new things on top of these new platforms.
Speaking about disruption, Vipin, earlier you talked about crypto, and I sensed a bit of criticism coming from your end on the crypto front. Of course, this is an industry that is looking to disrupt traditional finance, the sector and institutions across in a number of different ways. There are some countries in the Middle East. UAE has really made a big push behind crypto, and I think has found a very receptive audience here in Washington. specifically in having conversations about that space. So maybe I'll give you the chance to just elaborate a bit more about, how you see that industry evolving. And of course, I mean, you've got a range of different ways to tap into the industry. You've got cryptocurrencies, other forms of digital assets. There is, it's a broader space that I think deserves a little bit of unpacking. Be really curious to get your thoughts.
Right. And I've been wrong for $100,000. So let's take that with a pinch of salt. First of all, we call it cryptocurrency. And I have a problem with the word currency. It is not a currency. It's not a medium of exchange. The only people who are using it as a currency, and there still are sex traffickers, hackers, and drug peddlers. That's the only reason it's called a currency, because someone is using it as a medium of exchange, and this is that group. I've heard about, and I know exactly, everybody talks about settlement. It's instant settlement here and there, but that's not what it is being used, and it's never going to be used. It's only being used because of anonymity. Now, why is mom and pop buying it is a question. Why is the common guy buying it? He or she is not buying it as a medium of exchange or of a medium of store of value. Store of value is a very good gold. They are buying it because they are looking for the next fool to buy it at a higher price. The only reason people buy crypto is to find that other guy who will take it at a higher price from them. So that's one. Now,
and just to add into the mix though too, I mean, speaking of other forms as well, I mean, digital currencies, we do see some examples of Saudi, UAE working on cross-border digital currencies and other countries in the GCC. So even, I mean, the broader space is worth exploring too, but please.
Yeah, and several of them will open. If you and I today can launch a crypto, and you and I can launch a crypto, and the two of you can launch a crypto, and the proliferation of a crypto determines the value of crypto or of any asset. For a while, and this was about 8 years ago, 7 years ago, I was being pitched private equity ideas for marijuana. Everybody wanted to be in a marijuana field. Oh, this is going to open up, it's going to legalize. Guess what happened when it was legalized? Who made money? Do you have no farm made money? No software provider made money? Because there was a unlimited supply of people trying to do the same thing. And in this case, I think the price, if there exists, and there is a first mover advantage, I would believe with Bitcoin and maybe Ethereum because of the technology part, but it is not an abnormal set of profit that you are looking at. And if you are looking at that, then I think you're looking at a wrong place.
You can take the data centers like Abilene, Texas, that were there for mining crypto and turn it into AI data centers. So there's an opportunity to repurpose. Yes.
True. And that tells you about the data center opportunity at that point. Just as what happened to the office space.
Yeah.
So I hope I have answered your question. I'm not a skeptic here. I just look at it in terms of what's the unique reason for me to enter into a space. I heard of healthcare. There are only two truths. A, we are using a lot more technology, clicking phones everywhere, using a lot more storage. And then we are living longer. In between, maybe finance, consumer staples, consumer discretionary, there'll be a new coffee company, there'll be a new Chipotle. But we are living longer. So we will need healthcare, whether in terms of providers, medicine, centers, hospitals, we will be needing all of that. New devices, new knees, new dental supplies. All of them are the ultimate truths. And in between, who wins in giving me a loan versus someone else? Yes, that's a question of fundamental analysis. It's not a question of long-term industry vision.
I think bring up some fair points. It's worth noting a couple of countries in the region are trying to position themselves on the regulatory side of the fintech debate and are looking at not necessarily being leaders in particular cryptocurrencies or digital assets, but are looking at how to play, an effective and pragmatic role regulating the industry. I think Bahrain has tried to position themselves in that respect. So there are different ways that we see some countries trying to tap into this space, not necessarily a one-size-fits-all, but it's, fair points. Would you like to?
I was just saying, I was in conversation with SEC Commissioner Hester Peirce. She and I was moderating a fireside chat with her. And SEC is trying its very best to bring transparency and objectivity to this area. And I appreciate their efforts, actually, but that also means when you bring transparency, you lower down the price.
Over to Ehab. We talked a bit about healthcare, and healthcare came up. We went from crypto over to healthcare, and it did come up in some of your comments about biotech. What kind of interest in this industry are you seeing from investors? And looking at the Middle East, I mean, there's a lot young populations. I think there's a lot of work to do in the health space. I mean, what kind of opportunities are you seeing there?
Yeah, I agree with your point that there are two main driving criteria now for the investment world. AI, with all what it brings in every form or shape, and longevity. People are living longer, and therefore they need healthcare, biotech, and so on. So I think between these two factors, who can be looked at even in a combined way, we will see a lot of interest because, as I told you, it needs a belief of the vision and the government in the R&D and the long-term objectives, and it needs the commitment of the capital that is sophisticated and is aware of where in the biotech they can invest. And all of them, without any exception, has established these kind of vehicles whereby they agree with the targeted company, being a biotech or healthcare or technology or whatever. We will invest X, provided that you come and you start establishing the local capabilities, work with us on the R&D, and build our local talents and local capabilities and develop solutions for the local market. This is very specific with healthcare and biotech. And guess what? This is one of the industries where this is possible. It is possible because all what you need is talents and the ability to develop, and then resources to bring you the labs that you want to have, and all the other regulatory environment to allow you to make your tests and approvals and so on and so forth. So I think that will remain a very important segment of investments and improvement in the economy and in the investment world in the GCC country and of course in the world, but because they have all the enabling ecosystems and the driving policies, and they don't have all the bureaucracies and the constraints that we have in other regulatory systems. Their future is very bright and open.
Great.
Can I just add?
Rick, I'd like to give you the last word because we're running a little bit behind time, so I'm going to do the organizers a favor and try to help them on the timing, but please have the last word.
Yeah, so we have large language models today that are really good for knowledge workers because it's language-based. When you start putting physics and math into the models, they become large quantitative models. These can be very good at producing new materials, new molecules, precision medicine. I mean, a whole new frontier is about to open up with large quantitative models that are focused more on the science and math side versus the language side. So I would say that all kinds of new opportunities for medicine and biology are opening up.
Rick, Ehab, and Vipin, thank you very much for joining. Just the tip of the iceberg here with this conversation, but thank you very much, and thank you to the council for putting this together.
Thank you.